So, good morning and good afternoon and even good evening to everybody. This is the Alma Analytics Masterclass Overview and Introduction. This is the first of what I believe is an 8-part series, and we'll be going through various parts of the Alma Analytics, including the data visualization, and there's 2 simultaneous sessions being given. I say simultaneously, meaning on the same day. This one here that we're giving right now is primarily geared towards the Asia Pacific region due to the time. And later today at what will be 5 o'clock my time, which is another 9 hours from now, we'll be doing another session on the same topic delivered by one of my colleagues, and that will be primarily for North America and Europe. So, as you know from the various messages that have gone out, you can join whichever one's most appropriate for your time zone. We actually find that ones geared towards Asia Pacific actually have people from all over the world, and the ones that are geared for North America, Europe, same thing apparently. 2 a.m. for some people is an appropriate time to listen to a webinar. That's fine too. So today we'll be not looking so much at building reports and consuming what we call consuming analytics reports, looking at the reports. This is the overview and the introduction. So we want to make sure, for example, that all terminology is clear to everybody and also that people know where to get more information. So with that said, let's just jump right in. So, first of all, I'd like to point out the documentation. So let's remain in the sharing. And all of you know, for example, the Knowledge Center, the Ex Libris Knowledge Center. So if I just type knowledge Ex Libris Group Com, we'll get to the Knowledge Center. Knowledge Ex Libris Group Com, and we're in the Knowledge Center. And from here, we can navigate to the section on the Alma Online Help. From there, we can go into analytics. We could also just type right here, Alma Analytics. We could also go, for example, in a Google search and just type here, Alma Analytics, and let's put Alma Analytics and Ex Libris. So there we are. So same thing here. We're directly into the Knowledge Center. For example, if you want to see Alma Analytics subject areas, which we're going to talk about subject areas later today, so you've got a link right there. So a simple Google search on Alma Analytics Ex Libris, or even just Alma Analytics, will bring you to the Knowledge Center, to the main section on I happen to be logged in, so you see it a little different. Bring you to the main section here about all of the different parts of Alma Analytics. Also on the Knowledge Center, we've got a section on presentations and documents, and I'll jump right in there also. And here, there's many documents which are primarily PowerPoint. Sometimes it's a link to a movie. And this is the presentations and documents also on the Knowledge Center. I'm going to send this out in the chat for everybody, but you can also find this via standard searches like we just saw a moment ago. So everybody's got that sent. And another useful one is to go to YouTube. So on YouTube, we have a lot of material. So we'll pop into YouTube, and we've got an Ex Libris channel. So if you're not already subscribed to the Ex Libris channel, or you don't already have the Ex Libris channel bookmarked, you can search for the Ex Libris channel and then do a search inside the Ex Libris channel. I'll just come along here and search for Ex Libris Limited. There happen to be many Ex Librises around, but you'll see from the logo which Ex Libris is ours. So that's pretty clear. So here, I happen to be subscribed to it. If you go into the Ex Libris channel, There's an option there to search just inside the Ex Libris channel. You've got a magnifying glass here. And if I were to search, for example, for Alma Analytics, so I'll get all kinds of videos, Alma Analytics for beginners from 4 months ago. So this may be useful for you. In fact, this is from my colleague, Jenny Drager. I'm sure you'll enjoy Jenny Drager's presentations. So those are methods to access additional material. We've got the knowledge, that it's the Knowledge Center, YouTube, and you can get to all of these places via a simple Google search. Before I go on, let's just see if anyone has any questions or comments. We got that out of the way as to how everybody can find more information about Alma Analytics. Anybody have any questions or comments? Okay, I don't see any questions or comments. Excuse me for doing this one more time. Just someone write in, you see my screen, you hear me, and everything's fine. I don't want to find out later that there were technical issues. So anyone who still hears me and sees my screen, just write into the chat. Everything's good, Yoel. Okay, everything's good. Great. So now let's talk about accessing Alma Analytics. So first of all, like everything in Alma Analytics, like everything in Alma, it is dependent on roles. So I'm going to close some of these browsers because I already went in before starting and we don't need the YouTube anymore. And okay, so if I'm in an Alma, I can access Alma Analytics. Let me go back to my opening page here. Via on the left, I'm in not the configuration menu, I'm in the regular Alma menu. And you'll see here on the left, I've got a link to the analytics menu. And if I click the analytics menu, we've got links to design analytics and to data visualization, both for Alma and for Primo. Actually, let me show one more item about the documentation, because this just reminded me. Everything that I'm showing today is here on this page. I sent out the link to this page under introductory material. Everything I'm showing, you can find right here under the introductory material of the link I sent out to everybody. I'm not going to be showing these PowerPoints, but everything that I'm showing in the session today is in these presentations. Okay. So we've got, again, the link to analytics in the menu brings us to the design analytics and to the data visualization. We're going to be talking about those later. And then we have the same for Primo. The Primo Analytics and the Alma Analytics are separate. It's not one entrance to both of them. I see the design analytics and data visualization here for Primo because my demo environment that I'm here has Primo V. If you have Primo V, then you will see, like I see on my screen, provided you have the roles, which we'll talk about in a moment. If you have Primo Classic, or what's also called Primo Back Office, you will not see the link to analytics or data visualization here. And we're going to use these in a moment. The subscribe to analytics we'll be talking about also. That's a way to sign up to receive scheduled reports which the institution may have made. And analytics objects list, we'll also be talking about those. Now, the reason I see what I see on the screen is because of my roles. And let's actually open this presentation here, just in case we want to refer to it. Now, when we talk about roles and we talk about analytics, we talk about a consumer and a designer. A consumer is somebody who can access an analytics report. not necessarily change it, but somebody who can view an analytics report. He's called the consumer. The designer is the person who can create, edit, delete, etc. In order to be a designer, in order that from within Alma Analytics, I can click the analytics menu and do design analytics, and then I'm accessing analytics and I can start creating reports. For that, I need a role which is called Designs Analytics. If I go and I look at the roles, I'm going to go look at my user details. It means I will have a role called Designs Analytics. If I come down here and I look at my roles, here we are. So I have a role called Designs Analytics. Therefore, from here, I can see these 4 entries: the Design Analytics, the Data Visualization, and the same for Primo. There's another role called Analytics Administrator. The Analytics Administrator can see this role here, the Analytics Objects List, which we'll talk about what that is later. But I need the role Analytics Administrator. So everyone sees, actually, let's do a little test here. Everyone sees that I see these roles. I see these menu options. But if I were to come along here and take the Designs Analytics and make that not active, instead of deleting it, I'm just going to make it not active. And if I were to come along and get the Analytics Administrator, and also on that one, make that not active anymore. Here, Analytics Administrator. I'll make that one also not active. And I will save. And then if I log in again, any changes to roles requires logging in again. And even if it doesn't, it's the best idea if you change your own roles, log in again. And we'll see now that I no longer have what we saw before, which was the Design Analytics for Primo, the Design Analytics for Alma, and the Data Visualizations. I'm going to give those back. User details. And Designs Analytics will also do. I got a lot of roles here, as you can see. 218 roles. There we go, Designs Analytics. And now I will have access to everything I had access to before. Okay, so I'll sign out of there and sign back in, and that will cover what we need for roles. Before we move on from roles, are there any questions or comments on that? Let's just make sure I got everything back now. And I do. Okay. Let me go take a look at the chat, see if anyone wrote in a question. Any questions or comments up until now? Up until now, we covered accessing documentation about Alma. Oh, thank you. Thank you about the have a sip of water, somebody said. I actually have a glass here of iced tea. I think I'll take that. Okay. All right, so we discussed accessing the additional information, the documentation, and we talked about the roles. And everything, like I said, is in here. We talked about the designer and the consumer. We talked about the analytics administrator. This is exactly what he can do. Someone asks, do I need a role to be a consumer? No, you don't need a role to be a consumer. Um, Actually, I should preface that. You don't need a role related at all to analytics. When analytics reports will be made available to you, they are made available to you according to your role. For example, it's possible to make an analytics report be available only to circulation desk operators. So you have to have some role, but it's not a specific analytics role. And we'll talk about that more later. Okay, so these are the roles that I talked about in a moment. This is what we saw, we do see, and don't see, depending on whatever roles we have. And I'm going to leave this part about the consumers for later because we're going to get to that. Okay, so now something which is just general information. I wouldn't be good if I didn't mention it, but on the other hand, it's not crucial information. The Alma Analytics uses a Oracle Analytics server, and it's the latest version of the Oracle Analytics server. And while I'm in Analytics here, if I were to click this question mark up on the top right, it will give me the information about that. I can go, for example, directly to here, and it will tell me all about the Oracle Analytics server. It's nothing you really need to know. I would be remiss, though, if I didn't mention that that's what it's doing, that's what it's using. It's the Oracle Analytics server, and you can read more about it here, but there's really no need to. Just general information. Okay, now another topic is the ETL. Every night, data from Alma and from Primo is exported to Alma Analytics and to Primo Analytics. That process is called ETL, which stands for extract, transform, and load. The data is extracted from Alma, transformed into a format appropriate for analytics, and then loaded to analytics. That happens every night. However, there are two subject areas, which is the title subject area and the benchmark analytics subject area, both of which have a monthly ETL. And you can see when the latest ETL was when going into analytics. Here it states data. Let me make that bigger because I know it's small there. Okay, so now I'll scroll down and once again go into analytics. Okay, so now you can see on the bottom it says here data available as of 20 October 2021, 9:49. Data updated as of 2021, 1 o'clock in the morning. So that means that the data was extracted at 1 a.m. from Alma, and then it became available in analytics at 9:49 a.m. That means that if someone's making a report at 10 a.m., the data is up to date as of 1 a.m. the previous day. If at 2 a.m. someone made a loan, that loan would not be in the report created on the 20th of October. It would need to go into the next, be made on the next day. We have those also here. If I say create, we're going to talk more in a later session about the intricacies of creating a report, but let me just point something out here regarding the ETL. If I were to create, for example, an analysis now, anywhere, for example, fulfillment. If I make a fulfillment, because I gave the example of the loans, and I were to say, for example, here that I want to make a report of the number of loans according to whatever. We'll find something once it loads there. And I can include inside the report also that information about the time of the ETL. And we'll see where that appears. For example, I can say I want the number of loans not in house, and I want the number which were loaned, loan date year, and loan month key. So I'll go everything in 2000, what are we now? 2021. I'll say everything with loan year 2021. And I want to know how many loans were made each month in 2021. So I can include in this report also the ETL information. Here in the last folder, which is called institution, I can include everything about the institution, including the institution time zone, and those same two fields that we saw in the Alma interface, available as of, which is when did the ETL start, when did the data start to get extracted, and when did it finish getting loaded into analytics. So let's take a look at that. We just made a very basic report on the fly. Loan year, loan month key, number of loans, and we want to include the ETL information. So if we were giving this report to someone, he or she would know when the data is up to date as of. I can also include today's date. That's a whole nother issue. But here, I see when the data is available as of. And I could make this appear instead of in the columns. I could move this, but that's for another time. I could move it up there so it looks a little nicer. I can prefix it with something, data updated as of, etc. But that's the ETL. And as stated, there are two subject areas. One is the benchmark analytics, and one is the title subject area. Those are updated on a monthly basis. In fact, let's take a look at something. Here we see that it's today, October 20th. If I were to make one now in the title subject area, the benchmark analytics and the title subject area are ones which are more made for making trends than getting the latest up-to-date information. Therefore, and because they're very large subject areas, therefore, we don't do a nightly ETL. And let me just make a basic report here. So we've got number of titles, and let me put in there LC classifications group 1. And let's get rid of the LC classification group 1, which is called unknown. That just means it never had an LC, but we'll talk about that later. Unknown. The purpose now is not to describe how to make a report, but rather to show the difference in the ETLs by the different subject areas. So here I'll say is not equal to, just so I have a very basic report. And again here, we'll choose those fields. Now, there is a slim chance that here also it will say October 20th. If by chance that once a month, it's actually less than once a month. We say once a month, but it's actually about once every 20 days. It's a rotating cycle. Enough to say it's not nightly. It's usually once every 20 days, but just to cover ourselves, we say it's once a month. So once this report is out, we'll see the number of titles by the subject. So there we go. Oh, it is. It is also October 20th. Okay, so this was also done today. But in general, title subject area, we happen to have hit it when it's the same day, is a less than monthly, less than nightly. Okay, let's now look at the presentation on this one just to make sure we didn't miss anything. I'm going to close this one about the consumers, etc. And let's take a look. Let's put back the ribbon here. And here, if you recall, we've got also one here, the ETL. But let's move on. As I see, it's already 8:26. We're almost a third over with the session. Are there any questions or comments on the ETL before we go on? I'm going to take a quick look at the chat. Any questions or comments on the ETL? Nothing. Okay, so we're assuming everything is clear. So let's move on to the folder structure. If we look here, I'm going to save this. I'm going to click Save As, just so we can look at the folder structure. The folder structure, when I say folder structure, I mean the folders of where the reports can be saved. So we have here a folder called My Folders. My Folders is a folder that only the logged in user will see. In fact, here I am going to show a PowerPoint because we've got one exactly on this and it'll make it a little easier. Analytics folder structure. The My Folders, only the logged in user can see it. If you're in Analytics and you're working on a report and you don't want anyone else to be able to see it, maybe it's still being worked on, maybe it's your own private stuff, you can save it in the My Folders. A read-write personal folder accessible only to the logged in user. And I'm going to save my report there now. So to save my report there, I'll go to My Folders and I'll call it Titles by LC Group 1. That's the My Folders. Then there's the Alma folder. Let's do Save As again, just so we see the folders. The Alma folder is a read-only folder, and it includes the default reports and dashboards that we, Ex Libris, supply to the world, supply to the users. If I were to try now to save this one under Alma and then any of these directories, I'll try to save it under titles. You'll see that it's going to tell me that access is denied. And the reason access is denied is because the Alma folder is a read-only folder, as we state here as well. A read-only folder containing out-of-the-box default reports produced by Ex Libris. So let's take a look more in depth at that one now. I'm going to get out of here and go into Catalog. Under the Alma folder, like it just stated in the PowerPoint and like I stated, are the default reports and dashboards that we Ex Libris supply. So for example, if I go to acquisitions, we've got reports. These are all default reports that we provide. Then we've got dashboards. These are the default dashboards that we supply. If I click open on this, then it opens up. Now, we supply the report here, but of course, it's working on your data, or to be more exact, it's working on the data of the institution that you're working in. Now, if I want to take a report or a dashboard and customize it for my own personal use, I need to save it locally. All or most of these folders contain a prompts, a reports, and a dashboards folder under them. The prompts is part of the dashboards. We've got a session later on, another day later on dashboards, on building dashboards. So we'll talk about prompts then. But most of these will have here again, reports, prompts, and dashboards. I'm just moving around and seeing we've got reports, prompts, and dashboards. Now, if I want to take a report from the Alma folder, let's say I want to take a report called, let me go to e-inventory, reports. Let's say I want to take this newly activated collections and I want to modify it for my own personal use. I can do that, but then I need to save it in a read write folder and not this read only folder. That's probably because it's working with a prompt supposed to. That's the error. That's fine because it comes from a dashboard. If I want now to play around with this, yes, yeah, it's going directly. This comes from the prompt. That's why it gave an error. If I want to take this report now and modify it, I want to say electronic collection activation date filter is greater than or equal to, and give a date here. I'll say January 1st. Okay. So now I've modified this report. I'll make sure it works. This will give me everything, every electronic collection activated since January 1st, 2021. Then when I save it, I'll need to save it either under My Folders, which is a read write, or under the folder, which is the name of my institution, or the community folder. And we'll talk about those. So now I'm going to say Save As. And I can put it into My Folders like we did last time, or I can put it in the community, or this will be the name of your institution. I'm going to put it in the community, which we're going to talk about more later. And I will save that under shared reports and reports. And I'll choose any of these. I'll remove it later anyway. Let's say we want this under inventory electronic. And I will call this Ex Libris and electronic collections activated after Jan 1, 2021. Okay. So that's the ability to take a default report, which is in the Alma folder, which is the read-only folder that we, Ex Libris, supply to all users. I can take a report from there, modify it, and then save it in one of the read-write folders. That's the purpose of that Alma folder, to supply out of the box, read-only reports and dashboards. Now, let's go back to the catalog. I'm clicking catalog up here on the top right so I can see the whole folder structure. The catalog is more or less like Windows Explorer. Allows you to navigate through the different folders and see the different reports and dashboards there. So in addition to the Alma folder, we've got the community folder, which we just looked at briefly. The community folder, anybody can see and anybody can edit. Any user in the world. I now save that report. Another institution can go in and edit it, make a change to it, or make one made their own with the same name and overwrite mine. So the community is a way that users can share information and everybody can access it. If you have a very important report which you don't want ever changed, or you don't want anyone to access it, don't put it in the community folder. And there's a specific structure to the community folder. And if I come back to Google here and I were to write, and I'm stressing this again, even though I already showed it at the beginning, because we both pride ourselves and spent a lot of resources to make sure all of our knowledge center is not just discoverable via Google, but we put in a lot of keywords and things to make sure things are found. So if I were to write here, community folder structure, Alma Analytics. I hope I find it now after I stated what we do. There we go, first shot. Community folder structure, Ex Libris Knowledge Center, and here's an explanation of the community folder and what each of these subfolders are. Because we've got consortia, Ex Libris development, etc. Here's an explanation of them. And now if I go back into the folder there, I'll see here the ones that we saw on the online help: consortia, Ex Libris development, institutions, etc. So under shared reports, we have reports. This is where institutions can put reports that they want to share with each other. And it's broken down here by topics. Let me organize this A to Z. Okay. So it's organized by topic and shared reports, reports. So for example, fines and fees. These are reports contributed by the community. And the standard is to put the name of your institution and then the report. For example, these were contributed by University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth. These were contributed by University of Minnesota. This was contributed by Otago. If I click this now, even though these are contributed by other institutions, Lancaster did this daily cash transactions. Even though Lancaster, which is in England, contributed this report, I can run it on my own institution. Not only I can run it, I can only run it on my own institution. So I'm going to run this from January 1st to January 31st. I don't know if I have any cash transactions during that period, but maybe I do. But so I can run, or the user, yes, I do. So the user can run reports on their own data from the community folder using reports which other institutions created. And that's a nice way. And I see this one that Lancaster reported, it looks like it said, yeah, for Alma List. So probably I'm assuming what happened here that it says for Alma List, there was probably some questions going back and forth on the Alma List about using analytics for fines, fees, daily transactions. And someone said, hey, I'll put one in the community and you can all use it. Now, I will also point out, and it probably states it in the online help, and we'll take a look, that every Friday, the data centers are all synchronized, and then the reports appear for everybody. Let me explain. Maybe it's here also. Yes. So if I am in Australia, that means I'm in Asia Pacific, APAC. We have a data center in Singapore. All of the users in the Asia Pacific are using the Singapore data center. And then there's one in Amsterdam for the European users. If I'm in Europe and I save a report in the community folder, it will be available immediately for everybody in the European data center. On Fridays, we synchronize all of the data centers, and then by Friday evening, or let's say by Saturday, because of all the different time zones, it will be available for anybody in the world. So I now saved a report. If I'm in the EU data center and I saved a report in the community folder, which I did, anyone in EU will see that, but anyone else in the world will have to wait until Friday when there's a synchronization. And there's an example here. If somebody saves on Wednesday in the European data center, by Friday night, all other institutions and all other data centers in the world will be able to access it as well. Okay. Another folder is a folder with the name of the institution. Now, let me just switch my browsers here for a moment. And I'm going to go into a different one. So, if we look now and we go in, there's also a folder for your institution. My institution here is called Alma University. So if I go now into the Alma University as it states here, and if I go into analytics and I look at those folders, one of them will be called Alma University. And if you're at RMIT or Boston University, it'll say RMIT or it'll say Boston University. So I've got the Alma, which we talked about, the community, which we talked about, Leganto, that's like the Alma one, but it has reports, default reports for Leganto. And this is the Alma University one. In Alma University, it's a read-write folder. No one else in the world can see it. Everybody in the world sees the community. Everybody in the world has the same identical Alma folder because that's the read only that we Ex Libris supply. The one with the name of your institution is unique to your institution and no one else can see it. So if you want something to be available to everybody in your or to other people in your institution, then you would save it in the name of your institution. Not in the My folders, because in the My folders only the logged in user can see it. Not in the community, because the whole world then can see it and the whole world can change it. So not in the Alma folder, because you can't save it in the Alma folder because that's the read only. So it would go in the folder with the name of your institution. Before I stop for questions, let's see if we covered everything. So we discussed here the My folders, that's the read write. It only has the information from the logged in user. The Alma or the Leganto one, there's also an Explorer one. That's a read only folder containing the out of the box reports from Ex Libris. If you recall, I tried on purpose just to show what would happen to save something there, and I got a message that I can't. Then there's the folder with the name of the institution. And there, anyone in the institution who does design analytics can see it. And the community, which is read write, and the whole world can see it. So let me stop now and see if there's any questions or comments. Let's go to the chat and see if everything's clear. Any questions or comments about the folder structure? I know this session, compared to the rest of the future sessions, this session's perhaps a little more boring, but we got to get this stuff out of the way before we jump in and start seeing the nice features in analytics and everything else we can do. No questions or comments. Okay. So let me just do one more chat. Oh, someone wrote no questions here. Thanks. I wanted to make sure people are with me. So that answers my question. Okay. So now let's talk about dashboards. Let me open up a dashboard. Let's go to the default reports. And let's take the e-inventory. Dashboards open. I don't even remember what this one is, but a dashboard. So let's talk about dashboards. Dashboards is a way to be able to look at multiple reports all together. Sometimes there's a filter. In fact, usually there's also a filter so that you can create one filter which will work on all of the reports. Here we're just looking at reports. So instead of opening several different reports, in this case LC classifications DEWI, LC classifications LC, and then there'll be more here in the electronic collections tab, and then more in the available electronic resources tab. Instead of needing to separately keep opening different folders, when there's a dashboard, all of the reports can be accessed together, all in one shot. And newly activated portfolios and collections. So I'm looking at all of the different reports in the dashboard. Some of these dashboards, I'm going to go back to the catalog again, will include a prompt. Let's open, for example, the title level overlap analysis. This is one of my favorites. So here it's got these prompts. This is the overlap P and E. So if I were to come along here now and say LC classification code HQ and say, okay, so that's now running a report using that LC classification code. I put that in the filter, and that prevents an institution from needing to make their own reports with their hard-coded filters, because they can just run the dashboard and put in whatever filter they want. And those filters are across the whole dashboard. Here too, I can say HQ. It's also possible to make that filter remain with the same values across all of the dashboard. For example, let's run the acquisitions funds. Or let's say, let me just look around here, fulfillment dashboard. Okay, so here, if I choose loan date year 2020, when I switch tabs here, I won't need to every time choose 2020. This is loans per library. If I want to go to items loaned per patron group, it's already keeping me with loan date year 2020. So across all of the dashboard, it's keeping the same filters. Let's take a look at another one, the loans, returns, and overdue. That's a fairly new one. So if I choose here main library, or that library, apply. So that Canterbury is here, and then when I go with loans by CircDesk, there may be more filters by CircDesk, but it's keeping also the Canterbury main library. So I choose once, and then across the different tabs, it keeps that filter. So it's several reports together, all can be viewed at once, and the tabs are in there with filters that get saved across the whole system. It's also possible to access those dashboards or reports, and we're going to talk about how to do it later on in another session, directly from the analytics menu. So let me try one more place where I've got examples on this. You'll have to excuse me that I go to different places because I've got different examples in different places. So it's possible that we take these dashboards, which are made, let's go back to what we talked about the roles. The dashboards would be either made by the analytics designer or just used out of the box as they appear in the Alma folder, and then made available to a consumer. And one of the ways of making it available to the consumer is right here. For example, the acquisitions claims dashboard. So from the analytics, I can view the acquisitions claims dashboard. Person who wrote the question, I don't want to say the name to keep the privacy. Somebody wrote, do I need a role to be a consumer? And I said, we'll talk about that later. You don't need an analytics role, but you need some kind of role. Now, for example, this acquisitions claims dashboard, if I click that, it opens the acquisitions claims dashboard, which it'll open in a minute or a second or a few seconds. Now, that access to that dashboard will be available only to somebody who has acquisitions roles. And that's because we don't want to clutter up someone's menu. If somebody is a fulfillment operator, circulation desk operator, or let's keep it at circulation desk operator, they're probably not going to be interested in the acquisitions claims dashboard. Therefore, it's by roles, which I'm going to very, very, very briefly show now because we're going to talk about it later. But if I go into this analytics objects list, a dashboard is called an object, and I look at this acquisitions one, we'll see on the bottom that you can define which roles a user has to have in order to view this. So this acquisitions claim dashboard can only be viewed with someone by someone with one of these 14 roles on the bottom. These 14 roles on the bottom are all acquisitions related, as you see: fund manager, lender, ledger manager, invoice, fiscal period, etc. Because it's logical that that dashboard will only be relevant for those kind of users. Anything with ex libris and parentheses at the end are the default reports supplied by ex libris. Somebody writes here, just so people can see, I'm going to put this into Word. So somebody asks, if I create a report including a prompt, is it possible to see the input screen and the results at the same time? Do you mean see what was put in the prompt and see the results at the same time? If that's what you mean, yes. Yes. You will be able to see that. Yes. Okay. So someone says, I'm just putting it here so we can all read together. Can I make reports available only to consumers in my team and not everyone with this role in my institution? No. The way to make, we're going to talk more about this. There's one of these 8 sessions will be on the analytics objects. In fact, let's take a look at that. Here. You make this available to people with roles. At another session, creating and managing dashboards and analytics is a session only about that on November 10th, Wednesday, November 10th, and Thursday, November 11th. So, no, you can't make it only available to certain people. It's not by username or by team, it's by role. You can call it, though, for example, if your name was Mary. I don't want to use your real name to keep your privacy. So if your name was Mary, you can call it Dashboard for Mary's team. So everyone will know what it is, but you can't have it appear in this menu here according to specific users. It's by specific roles of the users. Okay. I think for our purposes, considering that we have a dedicated separate session, I think we've spoken enough about the dashboards. Are there any questions, any other questions about the dashboards? Anyone? Any questions about the dashboards? No. Okay. So in addition to the dashboards, there's other ways that the reports are accessed or consumed. One way, and we're going to talk about these later on, but this is the introductory session, is widgets. What we see on the screen here are called widgets. And they are analytics reports. Usually, they're significantly smaller than a regular report because, as you can see, they fit on here. If we look, for example, at 5 fastest vendors in the previous year, or let's go back here and do one. Primo top 10 popular searches in the last 12 months. Where is this coming from? This happens to be a Primo Analytics one, but let's take a look. In fact, that's a good opportunity for us to go into Primo Analytics. So I'm going to go into Primo Analytics, Design Analytics, Primo. So we're focusing just to show where is this Primo top 10 popular searches in the last 12 months coming from. If we go to the Analytics Objects list, there'll be a widget here called Primo Popular Top 10 Searches. I'll filter this by widgets from a source system. I can filter it by those from Alma or those from Primo. Here it is. So I can see now where this is coming from. So this is coming from a folder called Primo Alma University Reports from a name called Primo Top 10 Popular Searches in the last 12 months widget. And then these are the roles which I've allowed to be able to see it, which is pretty much every role. So let's take a look at that. So it's in Primo Alma University Reports. Here we go. So we've got Primo Alma University Reports, and here it is. This widget, which I'll just click open on here, that's what appears here as a widget. This one here. And we're going to talk about how to make those, but I'm just pointing out different ways that reports are consumed. We pointed out that it can be via the dashboard, and we pointed out that it can be also via the widget. Somebody asks a question here. Let me go to the chat. Someone says, oops, sorry, opened the wrong icon. What happened to my Microsoft Word? There we go. So somebody asks, does only admin can see the Primo Analytics object? The analytics, wait, the analytics objects list, from the menu, in other words, this is only the admin, which we showed at the beginning. The analytics system administrator, analytics administrator, excuse me. However, to see the widget here, I don't know if you're referring to the list or an actual object, to see a widget here, that, as we pointed out, is dependent on the roles which are attributed to that widget. So for example, I can see this menu link because I'm analytics administrator, and I can see this specific widget or this Primo Popular 10 searches because I have a role which is attributed to this widget. And I'll just show that one more time. If I go to the analytics objects list and I look at that Primo Top 10 one, because I have one of the roles defined here on the bottom, I can see that. Does that answer your question? Yes. Okay. So another way I can see a report is a link not to a specific dashboard, but rather to a specific report. For example, let me go back here again, and I'll go back to the analytics objects list. So it's possible to define a report. Detailed item count, including call number by library and location. Let's take a look at that. And if not, we'll build one, if this won't be appropriate for us. Let that spin around a bit. Okay, so this is called Alma University Reports B. Schmidt. Happens to be one of my colleagues. I'm on my demo environment, Bettina Schmidt. Maybe you are aware of her. So these are the roles which can view this report. It's not a dashboard, it's a report. I have these roles, so I should be able to see this. So let's go see if I see the report called Detailed Item Count. So we'll say Analytics, and here it is. Detailed Item Count right here where I'm selecting. So I can click that now, I being any user with one of the roles defined for this report, and I can view it like this. Oh, it's a nice one. I can make, oh, this is a very nice report. Okay, and whatever I want here, and whatever I want here. So that's accessing a report. I might not. Another way to access a report is via scheduled reports. And I have examples there in a special email, which is dedicated just to analytics reports. This is the library. Okay. I have an account called the library. The library 613, it's called. That's where I send all of my Alma letters. And let's take a look here at what we've got. So if we go back again to this analytics objects list, we looked at dashboards, we looked at reports, we looked at widgets. Now we're going to look at a scheduled report. So these are reports that are sent certain times of day. For example, every Monday at 9 o'clock, something called collections and portfolios is mailed out. To who is it mailed out? to anyone who has subscribed to it. And anyone can subscribe by going to subscribe to analytics. When a user goes to subscribe to analytics, they can take any of these reports, and if they want to subscribe, they'll click here, and then they're subscribed. So I just subscribed myself to something called All Items Created in May 2016 and on. That's how someone can subscribe to a report. I happen to be subscribed to several reports. Therefore, if I go into that email that gets the reports, still loading? Let's go here. And I get them here, so we'll see. It comes as an attachment. Here's one called ProQuest eBook Central Usage, sent to me from Alma University. And this is the report. You'll see here, in this case, it's sent as a PDF. Let me take a different one. Number of portfolios. Okay, so I got a report here called Number of Portfolios with No Subscriber. And in this case, they're opening as PDFs. We're going to see why in a minute. Counter release 5 total usage by platform. Here's one that's coming in as an Excel. I can click it like this and get the preview, or I can download it as an Excel. Now, the reason one came as an Excel and one came as a PDF is because when we're making, am I still in Chrome? Yes. Because when we're making, oh, I want to be here. Here. When we're making these scheduled reports, let's go. We can define what format they'll get sent out in. So if I look at these scheduled reports, here's the one we just looked at, Counter 5 total usage by platform, and I say edit, we'll see that this one must have been defined as an Excel and the others as PDF. There's various ways to send these reports. And okay, so here, that's why I got this one as an Excel, but it's possible to send it all different ways. CSV, text, or PDF. It's also possible to send these to an FTP server. I see that a question came in. Please show how to create unique physical items report, not the total physical items in Alma, just the unique titles. Aha, just the unique titles. Okay. And we'll finish with that because I covered everything that I wanted to cover for this introductory session. And like I said, sometimes these introductory sessions are a little more boring than the real sessions, but we're going to get to this real session. What is the next one we got? Next session, let's see, will be physical inventory and fulfillment in Alma Analytics. Okay, so that's a good one. That'll be a little more interesting, but we got to get through this overview. You have to know the directory structure. You have to know the roles. You have to know that there's ETL, etc. By the way, the second session is not in 9 hours from now. It's not this evening. It's tomorrow evening. Tomorrow evening at 4 o'clock London time. So let's do what this person requested, even though it's not part of the introductory material, but let's finish off doing something. So we don't want just the total number of physical items. We want physical items by unique title. Okay, so there's a couple of ways to do that. Let's do that here. So if I were to say, wait a minute, if you're saying there's actually several ways to do that. If you're saying Try to create unique physical items report, not total physical items in Alma. Do you want the number of unique titles that have at least one physical item? I'm trying to reread your request here. Unique physical items report. Well, all physical items are unique because they have a separate barcodes or primary or identifiers. Not the total physical items and just the unique titles. Okay, so it sounds like, let me see if you answered me in the chat. Yes. Okay, she said yes. Oh, so that you can actually do in the title subject area. Let's take a look. Because in the title subject area, exactly for that reason, we made the title subject area. Well, not exactly, among other reasons. So here, we can get the number of titles that have physical inventory. In fact, there's even a default report for that. But let's make one and then I'll show you the default. If we say create analysis, titles, so we have title measures, number of titles with physical items and are active. It's a pre-made measure. This is how many titles in the institution have physical items. By the way, I think we also have okay, this is good. This is number of titles with physical items or holdings records, because sometimes a record will have a holdings record but no item. So you can see there's a little bit more physical items with or holdings record. Then you can also get holdings records but no item. So it needs to be that this minus this equals this. That looks about right. Let me do a little test here, though I'm going out on a limb. I could get myself in trouble here. But if we say this minus 26924, I'll copy it so I won't make a mistake, equals 1092887. Yep, that's that. Perfect. Because this has an item or a holdings record. This has a holdings record but no item. So this minus this equals this. By the way, we've also got here under Alma and under titles, let me just see something here. Inventory breakdown. So here you can see what you've got in your institution. Total number of titles. This is active. It's not including the deleted. Deleted things also are included in analytics. For example, deleted items, deleted portfolios, deleted titles, because historically people may want to use that data. However, in all cases, you can get a measure which will have only the active ones, in other words, the non-deleted ones, and you can also filter by that. So here you've got the full breakdown all in one shot, and this is in the default out-of-the-box report here. Did that answer your question? Okay, so thanks everybody for joining us. Are there any other questions before we conclude? Don't see any other questions coming in. Okay, so we'll see each other. Let's just see again. What are we going to see next week? Hopefully you'll all be back here next week. Physical inventory and fulfillment in Alma Analytics. That's going to be Wednesday, October 27th, exactly 1 week from today. Same Alma time, same Alma place. We'll see you then. Thanks, everybody.